Hello, friends. Welcome to the Tuesday Night Book Club. We'll wait and see who else joins us here in the near future. There's usually about a 2-minute delay from the time that the announcement goes out that we're live until people start responding to it. But we'll see how that goes. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to finish it. Today has been one heck of a day. I've been running. I went through half a tank of gas today. Now we got to get gas before tomorrow morning. I don't like having the truck below 3/4 of a tank anymore, and I'm down to half a tank, so I'm really concerned about that. A lot of very interesting and kind of threatening news that's coming out today. So I hope you're devoting as much of your time and energy to prepping as possible. Prepping with Sarge just put out a new video, a new knife review on a Holtzman's Gorilla knife, a little bitty Tanto knife. It looked pretty neat. I wouldn't mind having that. Hello, Scott. How are you? We're waiting for a couple more people to join us. Typically, hi, LG. How are you tonight? I'm finishing up my dinner. Today's been one of those days. So Tuesday morning kicks off with my men's group, and that I try to be there about 7:30, do a little bit of interpersonal, before the meeting type of just chatting with friends and catching up on old times and stuff like that. And then the meeting's from 8 to 9. Then at 9:30, I had my appointment with pain management, the good old steroid shots. And so she's kind of done two things today that were a little bit different. And so she, number one, recommended that I get acupuncture and to go along with the cortisone shots. And number two, she's given me a prescription on a nerve relaxer. And she says, now, one of the disadvantages to this is that it makes you drowsy. And I said, hey, that's great because I'm having a hard time sleeping with the pain. So if it's going to put me to sleep and relieve the pain at the same time, that accomplishes the two things I'm here to see you for. Hello, Britch. Well, welcome. It's okay. We'll go through this one. We'll go through it 2 chapters at a time, and I'll try to give you as much of it as I can. And other people, please join in and give all kinds of good advice and recommendations. So after pain management, I went to a different hospital for my allergy shots. And then after the allergy shots, what did I do? Oh, I came home for a little bit. Then I went back for the acupuncture. And then after acupuncture, I had to hurry because today's All Saints Day. So it's a holy day of obligation. So I had to make the 6 o'clock Mass and then come back from Mass and get everything loaded up here, my notes into the banners so that we could be ready for this. And really interesting. It's been a very hectic day for the last 12 and a half hours. Anyhow, almost 13 hours. Yep. One of the things that was very interesting today, and then we'll get into the book, was the question was, if today is All Saints Day, which saints do you admire that you would like to emulate? And of course, standard answer, St. Francis. Hello, Texas Red Leg, St. Francis, and there's St. Francis right there. Yeah, there he is. You can see him over my right shoulder. St. Francis of Assisi, and then you've got St. Michael and St. Augustine, St. Jerome, who translated the Bible into Latin back in the 15th century. Hi, GGG Farms, and created the Latin Vulgate Bible, from which was translated from Latin by King James, and that becomes the King James Version. So those are all good old ones. But I have a couple favorites that are rather contemporary. Padre Pio is a favorite saint. Then Faustina, Saint Faustina Maria Faustina from Poland. is another outstanding one I really like. You can't help not help. St. Christopher's fantastic. Yep. You can't help but actually love St. Pope John Paul II and everything he did, and the sanctity of the body and everything else. And so just some really great stuff. But so anyhow, so mine are kind of current saints. Of course, around here I have St. Michael, the archangel, to protect us from the snares of the devil. So. But the only three angels that are named in the Bible, four. There's four angels named in the Bible. The three good angels named in the Bible are Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. But okay, so we're here to discuss this, and so let's get on with this and see what we can do. And we've got some fantastic participants here this evening. Remember that I saw today that. Stephen Smith is planning on having his volume 6 completed before Christmas. So depending upon the availability of that, we may have that for our January fiction book. But right now for November and December fiction books, we're going to be working on the A American series, the Going Home series. I just found out that I had read 10 of those and just found out that there's 12. So I ordered the other 2 and they should be arriving here tomorrow. But let's get into this stuff. So right now, we're doing chapters 5 and 6. So he's talking about the deep larder or food storage. And so one of the things that he talks about right off the bat is if there is an LDS, and there's 48 of them throughout the United States, if there is an LDS storage center near you, take advantage of it. And I have been doing that for decades. They have the best price now they have a very limited supply. A very limited choice of what you can get, but they do have the best prices on number 10 long-term storage canned goods that they're out there. As a matter of fact, I just went, so this is all ready for my haul video. I just went Saturday and I picked up 3 more cans. And so one of the things they don't do is they don't give you the seal, the lid for it. You have to pay extra for that. And let me give you this one, because this one, what I do is when I bring them home, this one's got an old Thrive Life seal on the bottom. And the reason I'm putting them on the bottom is because they're going underneath the bed. We have one of our Chihuahuas likes to go under the bed and use the hardwood floor for a potty. So I'm arranging the boxes and then individual cans so that Annie can't sneak under there at night or anything like that and ruin the odor of the sleep. But so I would strongly recommend to you. You can also order them online. I am not Mormon. I am definitely not Mormon. Although I used to teach for the Covey Institute and I used to teach for the Franklin Planner Institute. And then the two of them merged. And every time I went to Salt Lake City to be certified in a new program to teach, they put me up in the hotel right there on Mormon Square, and what do they call it? Tabernacle Square. They would put me up in the old Santa Fe Railroad headquarters, which is now the headquarters for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so when you're eating in the restaurant, you're actually staring the angel Moroni on top of the temple directly in the eyes. I mean, it was maybe 20 feet away from the table I was at. So anyhow, that's kind of in here. That's, you get as much of the LDS stuff as you can. As a matter of fact, I keep an inventory and how long I've had them and everything else. And that is can number 55, 3-pound can, number 10 can of flour that I've gotten from the LDS Church. And then I also picked up apples. So I now have 14 cans of apples. And I picked up a can of mashed potatoes. And so potatoes, flakes, that's can number 14 of the potato flakes. So, you can do that over time. Well, when I first started doing it, what I did was I get a can of flour, a can of refried beans, which I no longer have, and a can of onions. And I figured that would make bean burritos for quite a while. So I was trying to think, meal type planning. Okay, so that's that. And then the next one is he talks about FIFO rotation on page 80, which is the first in, first out on your rotation system. So the way I do it, and people do it differently. I would change, but I've been doing it for so long that it would really mess up my entire inventory. I write down on anything I get the month and year that I bought it. I haven't done that on these yet, so let me see if there's something else here that I have done it on. But when I buy something, I always put the month and year that I bought it, rather than when it expires. So you can see I got this medium shrimp from Walmart, and so I write the month that I have it, and then that way I can take a look at the months, and whatever is oldest is what I'm going to eat first in that first in, first out rotation. As a matter of fact, tonight for dinner, we're doing that. We're checking our rotation and replacing stuff and eating old stuff. We found a can of clam chowder from 2015. So that's what I had for dinner this evening. So if I'm not here tomorrow, then you'll know that don't eat clam chowder from 2015. It's a little bit too old. So then he talks about some other things you need to consider other than food. And so canning lids, rings, salt, get lots of salt, sulfur for drying fruit, lots of vinegar, 1 gallon bottles of vinegar. I don't like to buy too much in big bottles. I try to get it in the smaller container as possible. And the reason for that is up until the time we got solar, and I figured we could have refrigeration and everything. If you open a large can, let's say of canned food, and there's more there than the two of you can eat, you might not have refrigeration so that you can save that. So I would much rather spend a little bit more, get the smaller package and not throw anything away, than to save a little bit of money and have to throw something away. So that's just my thought process on it. Yeah, okay, so it looks like LG's agreeing with me. She writes the date that on hers as well. Spices, baking soda, and yeast, and then food storage bags. I have a Ziploc system, which is the same thing as some of the other storage bag systems you've seen. This one, where it sucks the air out and then it heat seals and everything else. I got it for Christmas for my daughter, so she bought the Ziploc brand. It was on sale at Costco. Plenty of aluminum foil. One of the shelves out in the garage is full of plastic wrap, aluminum foil, and parchment paper. Those are the three that I consider essential. And then, of course, he says to get deer bags, and because you can use that to store or cure meat. Then he talks about the top 10 essentials on pages 86 through 91. Hi, Janae. Welcome. So I'm going to switch off of my stuff here because LG makes a very, very important comment. And so we do the same thing. Our trash company here, we do have a recycle can and we also have a trash can. So as long as you rinse out the inside of any cans or anything else and take the label off, they will recycle the can. So you have to have the aluminum can totally separate from the labels. And so usually when I write that I've received something, I write it on the label. And that way, when the label gets scratched off or torn off, it's separated from the can. So they'd have to really be desperate to look for it in order to find it. And LG is saying she does the same thing. She separates the two. And, deer bags are basically hunting bags. So when you go out and you kill a deer, and you're going to field dress it right there when you get it, and then you're going to put the carcass inside of a large, extra heavy-duty plastic bag, and that's to keep the flies and everything else from getting into it if you're going to be driving for a while to get it to your butcher or to the processing plant. So think of it as being a body bag. I guess Texas Redleg, you're better at that than I am. I've never used a deer bag. I've seen them, but never used them. So let me get your opinion on that. He's a better hunter than I am. So we're in the top 10 essentials, and let me take that. That's getting me confused. Okay, so number 1 is salt. Get plenty of it. Number 2, he recommends 10 pounds per person per year for salt. Number 2, rice, 30 pounds per person per year. Wheat, 220 pounds per person per year. Corn, 50 pounds per person per year. Oats, 20 pounds per person per year. And he doesn't specify whether that's quick or whether that's the ground oats. And then fats and oils. And he recommends, he freezes his olive oil. And I've seen on his blog where he has a separate freezer for fats, basically, and he keeps his olive oil frozen. I keep mine in a cool, dark place in a closet in my pantry. And I've had good luck with them lasting 2-3 years. He recommends keep mayonnaise, canned butter, peanut butter, and you want 96 pounds of that per person per year. He recommends canned butter. I think red feather butter is the most common. Nowadays, you can get freeze-dried butter, and I strongly recommend that. There are several different organizations or companies that sell freeze-dried butter that are widely available for you. There's also freeze-dried shortening. Now, this shortening, when it's freeze-dried, you can only use it in baking and cooking. You can't use it for frying. So, for frying, you're still going to need lard, and in Spanish, that's manteca. And but one of the ones that has a longer shelf life of all the oils that are out there is coconut oil. So that's what I kind of store up on, is the coconut oil. Oh, like a cheesecloth. Okay, fantastic. So Butch has experience with it. Yeah, and I knew it was to keep the bugs off. Okay. We're still in the 10 essentials. Powdered milk, and he recommends 20 pounds per person per year. You can get, and I did a video comparing different powdered milks. I now have a new favorite. At that time, my favorite was the Nestle's. The favorite taste for the cost was the Nestle's. Oh, what's it called? It's any Fortificado, Nestle Fortificado, and it's usually over in the Hispanic foods area. But that was the best tasting for the money at that time. The best value for the money is the LDS Mormon Church powdered milk. Now my favorite, now it's expensive, but it is my favorite because it's enhanced with vitamins, minerals, and other essential things. Is the Nutrient Survival powdered milk. So that's my current favorite that I'm stocking up on. Comment. Okay. Let me see. No, we're at canned fruit and vegetables. He doesn't give a recommendation on that. I'm going to recommend, when I plan my meals and I buy all of my food supplies based on a meal card thing I did a video on. So I'll come up with a card. Let's see if I have any here that I can show you. Oh yeah, there they are. Okay, so here's my card for bacon for breakfast number 1. So this is a bean and cheese burrito. So this is all the stuff I'm going to make. This is all the stuff I need to buy in order to make that, and down on this side. So then I can put that into my calendar and determine how many of those I can get off of that one serving. If I buy a number 10 can, let's say, of refried beans, how many servings am I going to get from that? That tells me how many bean burritos I'm going to get. So I need that many number of flour tortillas or that many servings of onions or whatever I'm going to add to it, cheese, anything like that. But every meal that I fix, I recommend that we have a vegetable, and then we also have a fruit for dessert. So if that's the case, if you're going to have at least 2 meals a day for 365 days, that means you need at least 730 cans or servings of fruits and 730 servings of vegetables. That's what I plan for. Now, canned meats, he doesn't say what he'd like to store for or a recommended amount that you store, but he does say that most of them go bad after 2 years. Dinty Moore beef stew has a very long lifespan. And I think it's something like 30 years in the can. Same thing with the Dinty Moore, what is it called? Something and, oh gosh, terrible. Dinty Moore has 2 different foods that they come in cans that are basically long-term storage foods. And then Spam, of course, lasts 30, 40, 50 years as well. And so both of those, you can store long term. I like to get the majority of my meat in freeze dried. Although I do have, there's other alternatives. You can get chili, hash browns, canned ham, and he talks about his favorites, Dak canned ham. They have little bitty cans of diced ham as well at most of the grocery stores. A little 6-ounce can, flat 6-ounce can. Tuna lasts a long time. Oh gosh, there's so many. There's salmon, oysters, clams, so many good things that you can get in cans. And so I'm planning on at least two protein meals per day. And that's going to be either fish or meat every day. So that's, once again, that's 730 servings per person per year. And then sugars, he says, a combination of honey, sugar, molasses, sorghum, maple syrup, jams, jellies, but about 50 pounds per person per year. So any comments or thoughts or questions or additions to those in your minds? Okay, then moving on. Other essentials that he says you have to have. Ultra high temperature pasteurized retort packaged milk usually has a shelf life of about a year to 2 years. And you can find these on the shelves at Walmart. They have both whole milk and reduced fat, not fat free, but reduced fat milk on the and they're usually in quarts. I've also seen a lot of other prepper channels that buy them at the dollar store, and they have UHT milk. By the way, in Europe, that's the only way that they have milk available in most of the grocery stores is UHT milk. So if you're going to go to Germany and live in Germany like we did, that's what you're going to drink for at least 3 years. Absolutely. And LG is kind of reinforcing what I said a little bit earlier. Get those smaller cans because you don't want to be concerned with waste. You don't want to throw something away. You may have gotten it cheaper, but by the time you start throwing stuff away because you have too big of a can and you don't have enough people to eat off of it, then that's waste. Now, if you're planning on inviting other people over or you're going to donate your leftovers or something like that to the community, that's a different story. But be aware that if you do that, that can make you subject to several other things which may or may not be good for you. He talks about multivitamins and making sure you have plenty, at least 500 milligram of vitamin C's, get good quality B complex vitamins. He does not recommend getting too much of the CADE. He calls it KADE. Hello, Lori. Welcome. And so that's vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin E. Believe it or not, you can overdose on vitamin D. And believe me, I have done it. And I've also overdosed on magnesium. And so once, it takes a little bit of work to find out that you are overdosing on them, because you have to have some blood tests and stuff, but you can overdose on both of those, and it's not a very pleasant experience. He also talks about natural laxatives, and let me tell you something. I got 21 years in the Army. If you plan on living on C rations or MREs, there's a reason why they only gave you that much toilet paper with each one of those packages, for a day. It's a very small little package of toilet paper. And there's a reason for that, because the meals do not necessarily go through your body quite that easily. They can, long-term eating on either MREs or vitamin or the old C rations can kind of plug up the plumbing. So be aware of that. Yes, and Dusel Invictus. So Invictus is Latin. Dusel. It's got to have a meaning. Dusel Invictus, welcome. And he says they're going to be needed if you eat a lot of canned foods for a long time as well. And then Lori's saying, yeah, you can overdose on vitamin D. And she gets all of her vitamins checked on a regular basis. Yeah, so, I would have never thought that you can overdose on vitamins, but you can. There was a lady recently, no, not recently, a couple of years ago, who died from drinking too much water. Howard Stern had a thing on his radio story, and it was a challenge to who could drink the most water in 1 hour. And a lady won, and then she died from overdosing on water, believe it or not. Some of the other things that he recommends having, of course, vitamin C, peanut butter, blue-green algae tablets. I have until I read the book, I never heard of those. But he says it's great for short-term bug-out bags. Sprouts. I have several sprouting kits. I also have hamama kits for like green onions and radishes and things like that. And then coffee. Now, so the thing is with coffee, if you get the number 10, the 3-pound can of coffee, those air can kind of permeate the cans over time. So those probably have a shelf life of maybe 3 to 5 years, and it's going to start degrading in taste as you age. Now, the instant, freeze-dried instant coffee pretty much has a indefinite shelf life. The other one that he talks about in his book, we fell in love with when we were in Germany, and that's Kronug coffee. And what they do is first they take the coffee, they grind it, then they put it into a vacuum sealer, and they vacuum seal it inside a one of those storage bags, seal the top and everything else. And so when you get it, a full number 10 can of coffee is about like this and probably about that thick. Let me see if I can get this here for you. Yeah, about like that. Just a little bit thicker than this book, maybe 4 or 5 times thicker than the book. And, that's a full 3-pound can once the air's been put back into it almost. So you can get a lot of coffee in one of those German vacuum sealed packed coffees that is just fantastic. Hi, Vivian. I lost my place. Doggone it. Lee. Should be right there. Food Saver Vacuum Packing Systems. Okay. So he talks about whole grain versus milled grains. Oh, that's why. I forgot. I had an itching in my ear, and I forgot that they put those, what do you call it? Acupuncture things in my ears for the pain management. So I reached up there and go, whoa, yeah, I know what that is now. But he does talk about if you're going to eat, that milled flour does not, milled grains, whether it be flour or corn or oats or anything else, does not have the same shelf life as the whole grain. Once you break that kernel, then it starts to degrade. And so he recommends having the whole kernel grain and for long-term storage. Now, if you do want to do that, The LDS Provident Living Store does have 50-pound bags at a very good price of both the red winter wheat as well as the white wheat. And they're very inexpensive when you buy them that way. Problem is you have to get a good mill to grind them. And good mills really, unless you find one for a fantastic deal at like Goodwill or something like that, a good mill is going to run you about $200-300. In order to make flour that is good enough for baking, you've got to run it through the grinder twice. So that's on page 98 in his book. Let's get down here. Storing fats and manteca, which is the Spanish word for basically for lard. One of the things that I really found interesting, and one of the things that's always bothered me. So when I buy my freeze-dried foods from Thrive Life, I've been a distributor with Thrive Life now since 2009. So 13 years, golly. But I was always buying the PC can, the little 2.5 can, because I had that theory at the time that, once you open that can, for meats, it's only got a 6-month shelf life once you open it, because it figures that enough air will permeate the plastic lid and everything else to where it'll go bad in 6 months. So you want to use any number 10 or number 2.5 can meat-wise within 6 months of opening it, and anything that is vegetable, fruit, or anything like that within 1 year, because it's going to be rehydrated enough to where it's going to lose its ability to store. So he kind of came up with a solution for that I wish I'd thought of. I'm going to go ahead and take credit for it, even though I didn't think about it. And that is he gets wide mouth mason jars. And so then once they open a number 10 can, they use it the first time, then they pour the remnants into a mason jar or cur jar, but one of those large jars. And then they vacuum seal that. So you can either put the lid on, and he says put in an oxygen absorber. I found, and it's on Amazon, I'll put the link down here. I'll look for it and have it down here for when the replay of this video happens. But I found something that's made in China. And so what you do is you take the lid, you put the lid and everything on the jar, and then you take a little kind of like a push pin from a mat board or a cork board or anything like that. And you poke a very small hole in the top of your mason jar. I'm going to use that as a generic term. And then they have these little flaps. So you got this black rubber flap, and gosh, it's not even the size of a flag. It's probably the size of that portion of the flag, just this tip here. But it's a little black rubber thing, and half of it, just like a flag for a book, part of it has rubber and the other part is loose. So the loose part goes over the hole, and the rubber part gets put next to the hole, so that you have this little flap that's hanging next to that pinhole. Then it has this kind of reverse syringe. So you put this contraption over the top and you push down on the handle. And as you're pushing down on the handle, it's sucking all the air out of the can. And of course, that flap is kind of like a bellows. It's going to open as the air is coming out. Then as soon as you release pressure on it, it's going to slap closed because you got suction on the inside. So you push down the handle a couple times. It's going to suck that air out. The suction is going to hold that black flap down. So then when you're ready to open it, all you have to do is remove the flap, and that removes your pressure seal. You open it up, use what you want to, then repressurize it or vacuum seal it with that same lid once you're done with whatever it is you need to use it for. So that's another way you can do that. He goes into an exposition on food grade buckets, where to get them, gamma seals and everything else, which are fantastic. And then there's a fantastic chart that he has on page 95. I think it's on page 95. And no, it's on page 97. So right here in this gray section right here, he has a fantastic list of the different kinds of cans and storage cans and buckets, and what they're made out of, and how long it'll take oxygen to permeate through that device. So, for example, if you're going to get a HDPE grade bucket, and then that says that it's going to allow in the first year 1,500 to 3,000 milliliters of oxygen to permeate through that plastic. So it tells you which buckets don't need Mylar bags as a secondary on the inside and which ones do. So sometimes you have to use both the plastic bucket and the Mylar bag. And that's a fantastic little chart to have handy and available for you afterwards. Then he also talks about another way that you can vacuum seal. So if you don't want to do the boiling, get the water out, or the method I'm talking about, or use the oxygen absorber and close the whatever you're closing. And I'll just use a jar as an example here. He also says you can use carbon dioxide, which is dry ice, so it's been pressurized, high pressure. He says for a 5-gallon bucket, use about a thumb's full and go ahead and let that dry ice begin to, I forget the technical word for it, but it's basically melt. And so carbon dioxide is slightly heavier than air. So what happens is as that dry ice melts, in that 5-gallon bucket, it's going to go down and displace any air up. So that thumbful should be enough to displace the vast majority of oxygen in that bucket. Once it gets down to about a dime-sized piece of carbon dioxide, of dry ice left, then it's safe to go ahead and seal it. You don't want to seal that bucket before you've got the oxygen displaced by the carbon dioxide, or you've just created a bomb. So, that will create enough pressure to where you can't explode that bucket. And I don't think you really want to do that. Then he talks about fuel and home. So we're getting into chapter 6. No, we're not. Oh, wait a minute. Before we get there, he does talk on pages 104 and 105, and I think this is kind of important. Various ways, if you're afraid of people trying to steal your freeze-dried food or the food or the canned food or anything else that you have saved for yourself, and you're afraid others may try to steal it from you, he says, buy a good used queen-size hide-a-bed, remove and discard the entire bed frame internals and the mattress, build a framework of 2x4s, and cut a piece of 3/4-inch plywood to support the seat cushions. Then you've got a storage area built in underneath of that hide-a-bed. He says you can also put a single row of cans on any bookshelf in the back, and then put the books in front to hide where those canned goods are. He says that another good one is buying, of course, now everybody's read this book, so it's probably not that good, but buy good used 4-drawer vertical file cabinets, and then have the labels like 2007 tax returns or business receipts or business expenditures or something like that. Titles that look very innocent and disinteresting to somebody who's going to be breaking in and looking for things to steal. He says an outdoor solution is to find an out-of-commission chest freezer and, take out the guts and remove the electric and everything else, open it up, put in what you want to store in it, and then cover that with either firewood or charcoal or earth or something. But it basically becomes hidden by other things placed around and on top of it. And another old outdoor solution is to buy an older used pop-up camping trailer, and you can put your stuff in there because he says thieves don't think there's ever anything in a pop-up camping trailer. So plain hide-in-sight techniques, just plain cardboard boxes in a storage area with, photos, photo albums or something like that written on the outside, something kind of innocuous. He says those work as well. So that's kind of it. And then we're going to go into chapter 6, Fuel and Home Power, on page 106. Any questions, comments, or any of your great ideas about storing food for a long term? Hi, Vivian. Let me catch up with you here. Ooh, I got some hair caught inside that. Okay, here we go. Um, yep. So she gets her milk at Dollar Tree now for $1.25, shelf stable. That's probably that UHT milk that I was talking about, the shelf stable. Um, Lori's talking about the same thing. And then saying great information. Don't forget, there's other options for milk. So you've got freeze the powdered milk. It can be either freeze dried or dehydrated. You've got the UHT milk. You've also got condensed milk is available to you. So you can also get that and then remix it with water, and that becomes something for you to use. Um, Anything else on freeze dried foods and stuff like that? So I do have some MREs. We can get those at the commissary. They're still expensive even at the commissary. I think they're anywhere from $7.50 to $8 a meal, even at the commissary. And whenever we go to the commissary, I try to pick up one or two, and have done that for several years. But they have a shelf life. MREs have a shelf life, and so do C rations of about 7 years. But I have a couple boxes of C rations from Fort Riley back in 1970s, 74 through 76. So I think they'll probably be good as long as the can's not swollen or anything like that. Okay, let's move on to fuel and home power. So he says, number one thing is get plenty of batteries, just batteries, batteries, batteries. And if possible, you can get a solar charger, a very small one for around $30. And then you can get a battery bank that's got a USB cable you can plug into that solar charger. And it'll usually take like 5 AA batteries or 6 AAA batteries, but you can get AA and AAA size chargers and rechargeable batteries. And then you can put those into your solar charger. So if you let's say you have a dozen AA batteries, you can have 6 of them working in your flashlights at one time. And while you're using those up, the other 6 are charging in your solar system in your backyard on the solar charger. So you have a constant supply of batteries all the time. Now, we try to standardize everything on 1 or 2 battery sizes. I'm kind of at a oh gosh, what would you call it? A conundrum, I guess. For example, I have a low light scope on my hog hunting rifle. And so it's a very specific type of a battery, a nickel cadmium battery. It's in a circle and it looks like it's about a little bit smaller than no, it's probably the same size as a quarter. And so, how am I going to get replacements for those? And those aren't rechargeable. So, try to standardize as much as you can on one or two sizes, AA, AAA. Just standardize your batteries and get plenty of them. I saw in advertisements when I was at Costco just last weekend. I believe it was Energizer, but I could be wrong on that. But they had a thing up there and it said 5-year shelf life on the display. So, there are some batteries out there that they're advertising that they do have a long-term shelf life. Here's another thing. My very favorite flashlight is called a Nebo bat light. And so what it is, it's a policeman's baton, but it also has a 1,000 lumen flashlight in it. Well, stupid me, I left the batteries in it. And of course, the batteries corroded. And so now I have to take some vinegar and baking powder and clean that out and everything so that it'll work again. But one of the things I want to strongly recommend to you is if you're going to have flashlights that you leave out for use in the home, don't leave out battery operated flashlights. And, we have a flashlight in every room just in case there's a power outage. All of those are USB rechargeable. All of my battery flashlights, I keep the batteries outside of the flashlight now because of what it did to my bat light. So we're talking about the boxes of milk here that they store a lot better than a lot of the other things that in comparison. I don't have an answer for that, Linda. I know that there are some that are sold in like Walmart and stuff, and I bought a couple, but they're very flimsy and they won't hold up the weight. I have a whole bunch from Dean Foods, only because I used to have my food service trailer, after Hurricane Katrina, where we helped people who were in emergency situations. And so Cisco was one food company. Gosh, we had about 4 different suppliers of foods. Benny Keith and Kraft Foods. They would deliver stuff, and they would deliver stuff in the milk cartons you're talking about. So I probably have 15, 18 of them here in the house. But I have found that the thinner ones you buy at Rooms to Go or Crate and Barrel or Container Store or Walmart, those are fairly thin. They aren't going to hold up the weight. Same thing with the ones that I saw at IKEA. So I probably would not recommend those. Okay, so Lori's talking about the same thing, but the ones at Walmart, I will tell you that you got to find sturdy ones. I am almost convinced that the best thing to do would be to get the 1/4-inch wood boxes rather than the plastic ones, unless you're going to get the professional ones like the Dean Food ones that are quite often out there. They're gray, green, and blue. Then I would say, probably you might be better off getting the thin wooden ones. Disadvantage there is the wood weighs more. Yes, Amazon does sell them, and relatively not that expensive, but they, if you get enough to where you get free shipping, then it's worth it. Great comments, y'all. Thank you so much. Then he also talks about photovoltaic rechargers. So that's basically what we have been talking about, getting those solar rechargers and getting those solar rechargeable batteries. He talks about the fragility of the U.S. grid. We're probably going to see a lot of grid power outages in the very near future. If they don't resolve the train issue, we could see some major power outages. Remember, it takes an entire train load, a 1-mile-long train load of coal to fuel a coal-burning power plant for one day. So you imagine what happens if the train strike happens and we start reducing the amount of coal being delivered to the coal-fired power plants that we still have available to us. As those get reduced in their online capacity, that's going to put a draw on the grid, and they're going to have to start shutting down and doing brownouts, rolling brownouts. So that's a very possible thing to happen here in the near future. Let me see. He talks about photovoltaic power systems. So he talks about 3 different kinds of whole house power solar systems: the standalone, the grid tied, and the grid connected but standalone capable. So let's talk about each one of those. So the grid alone is you have the solar generators up top. Now you can do it one of 2 ways. You can set it up without a battery, a storage battery. So what happens is as long as the sun's up and hitting those photovoltaic converters, you're going to be producing electricity. It goes into the house and you consume it. Okay. Now the key is nothing's saved. And as a matter of fact, if you're generating 1,000 watts of power through your solar system and you're only drawing 500, the other 500 are just lost. So that's a disadvantage to that. If you have a battery system, on the other hand, then as the sun hits those photovoltaic panels, it goes first to the battery charger. The excess goes to your use, and if you use more than what is the excess going to you, then you start drawing from the battery. And then the battery usually has a number of cycles. Most of those batteries now have about 35,000 cycles. So that's just under 10. If you drain the battery and reuse it every day, that's about 10 years, just under 10 years worth of use. So that means they're going to last a pretty long time. Now, if you have that same system, you have the solar system and but you're hooked up to the grid and you don't have the battery, the main reason you're doing that is to reduce your cost of electricity. So first you're drawing from your solar system, and then if you don't have enough power being drawn from the solar system, or it's not producing enough, so you're producing 1,000 watts, you're using 1,200 watts, now it's got to draw the other 200 watts in from your electric provider. So now you're paying for 200 watts of electricity instead of the 1,200 watts you were paying for before. Then the third one is considered a hybrid system. And the hybrid system, what you're going to do is you're going to have, it's going to be hooked up to the grid. And this is what I have. You have the panels on the roof. You have the battery in the garage. So as long as I'm on the grid, if I need more power than what my panels are providing, I draw off the grid and I pay for that. And the system, when they set up the system, most people, and be careful if you buy a system, they're going to try to get you to do 90% of your average consumption. So you're going to consume a lot more in the summer than you do in the winter with air conditioning and everything else. So they take that. So that means that sometimes in the winter you're overproducing electricity, but in the summer you're way underproducing what you need. So you're not saving that much. Convince them that you want 90% of your peak average. So for me, that was 5 months. The 5 months, June, July, August. May, June, July, August, September are our 5 peak months for high use draw of electricity. So I designed my system so that my solar system is producing 90% of that. Yes, there are times in the winter when I'm overproducing, but that's okay because that's also when we have shortages because of a lot of other uses, and I'm able to give that back to the power company. So now, if the grid goes down, if you don't have a battery, you're SOL. If you do have a battery, once the grid is no longer coming into your house, it automatically shuts that off and you start drawing automatically off your battery. So what happens now is your solar panels are regenerating your battery's providing the power to the house. Now, there's 2 different ways. We have whole house, which means all of my plugs are hot. So I could plug anything into any plug and it's going to have power as long as I don't exceed the amount of power that my battery is capable of reproducing or that the solar panels are capable of producing. Now, a lot of companies, what they'll do is they'll have you designate 10 or 11 plugs in the house that you want to have power to in case of an emergency, if there's going to be a blackout or a brownout. And so those are going to be the 10 or 11 that you commonly are going to use. You're probably going to want one for your refrigerator freezer, another one in your kitchen for some other use, a bread maker or a small hot plate or something like that. So you got to figure out where you're going to have those 10 high value plugs that you want to have available to you in case of a brownout or blackout. So that's kind of the whole thing on solar or photovoltaic systems. I strongly recommend you get battery backup. I also have a Jackery 1200, and so that's that is a small battery backup, and I'm going to use that for my oxygen machine. I have to take 400 liters of oxygen while I'm sleeping. It's not a CPAP; it's just regular oxygen, and so I'm going to use the one that I'm putting out in the backyard and charging during the daytime for the sole purpose of powering my oxygen generator or oxygen concentrator at night. Then I also have another one that is that I got from a company that Pinball Preparedness recommended, and it is a solar-powered refrigerator freezer. So I can just set that out in the backyard, and it's got 2 batteries. So you charge one battery, get it all charged up, put the other one in, trade those out. Then you have 24 hours worth of batteries for the system that is constantly recharging. And I figure, you say you want to add value after SHTF and you want to have something barterable. What I'm going to do is I've got this small freezer that's solar powered. So I'm going to be the Iceman. So you bring me your bottle of water, and I'm only going to do small or regular size bottles of water. And we'll throw it in that freezer overnight. You give me something for that, and I'll freeze your water for you, and you'll have ice the next day. So that's what I plan on doing for my contribution to the community, is being the Iceman. Thank you, Prepping with Sarge. He's fantastic. So I told you he just put out that one knife review. Make sure you go take a look at that. Thank you for that recommendation, Lori. Social Dilemma, welcome. Thank you for the thumbs up. Well, thank you, Linda. I guess you have good expectations. Yes, and and one of my major concerns, and it was a key point that they had to convince me of, is that we have quite frequent hailstorms here in Central Texas, and I've had 2 cars totaled because of hail damage. I can't tell you how many roofs I've had on houses over the course of the last, oh gosh, I retired from the Army in 91, so I've been living here since 91. So 31 years. I can't tell you the number of roofs we've had replaced because of it. And, of course, that takes down the resale value of your house, too. If you have too many of those, and your insurance goes through the roof. But anyhow, I've lost 2 cars due to irreparable damage to the car. One of them, as a matter of fact, was a Kia Sportage. And I had just gotten it back. They were having problems with the engine. I had 125,000 miles on it. The engine seized. It was a problem that they identified because I had a perfect maintenance record with Kia and I had to maintain the Kia all the time. They replaced the engine for free. 125,000 miles on the engine. They replaced it for free, no problem. Got the car back on a Tuesday. On Friday, we had a hailstorm and the car was totaled. So I had a brand spanking new engine in it at 125,000 miles, and I only got $7,000 for the car. Oh, well, life is what life is. Oh, so that's where I was going with that was the solar company had to convince me that the solar panels were safe from hail destruction, and they did. So there already is a small protective coating over the panels, so that it protects them from hail and other things like that. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not even going to predict that it would be something that would survive a hurricane or survive a tornado. I'm just saying that it does survive hail. And but at the same point, and that brings up a very good point, is, my portables, my Jackery and my refrigerator freezer that I have to put out in the backyard, though, remember, solar is only good while the sun is shining. So when we had Snowmageddon here, February of last year, there was 13 days that we didn't have power. Well, out of those 13 days, 7 of those days, I had ice-covered panels, or it was so overcast that I was producing no electricity in the panels at all. And the battery is only good for 3 days at normal consumption before it has to be regenerated. So, if you've got 7 days of no power and you've only got a 3-day battery, you've only got 3 days of power, and then you're going to go 4 days without. So you got to have other things, a diesel generator, a gas generator, anything like that, that's going to be a backup. So, you've got to have that. There's the trite but true prepper expression, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So if you're just counting on your battery backup solar system, there are going to be times that that's not going to be good to you. You're going to have to have another backup for that. So you make those plans ahead of time. Let me clear off these distractions. So a 45 amp hours UPS back that automatically goes to the batteries as soon as the power goes off. Yes. Yep. So UPS is a universal power supply, by the way, people. And so basically what that is that he has let's call it a super battery. Okay. And that super battery is plugged into the wall. And so it keeps a constant charge on that super battery. And then once it detects that there's a power outage, then it kicks in and provides the power. And usually it's going to be to a designated number of plugs. It's not going to do the whole house. It's going to be very few things that it's going to power up at one time. This also is going to require something else we're going to get into that Mr. Rawles gets into his book on here in just a minute. And that is when you have a UPS like that, you need an inverter. because all batteries store direct current, and most machines use alternating current. So you have to have an inverter, and that's going to change the direct current power to alternating current power so that it can be used in your machines. So just be aware of that. But that's a fantastic idea, Mr. Graves. I would strongly recommend that for everybody. That's probably going to be the best affordable solution for most people for short-term power outages. And I strongly recommend that. Thank you for bringing that up. Very good suggestion. Yeah. And so that's another thing is the solar panels are basically sails. So they're bolted into the roof and into those pieces of plywood or whatever you have for roofing material. And so if the wind gets in between and sucks them away, they're going to rip your roof away with it. So yes, that is a downfall if you're in one of those areas. We have straight line winds here. We had 65-mile-an-hour straight line winds the other night. No damage to the solar system, but it was blowing semis all over the freeway. As a matter of fact, there was an F1 tornado set down about 8 miles north of us. So that was kind of interesting. As a matter of fact, that place where it sat down, it was an west to east tornado. They had one of the worst F5s in the history of the U.S. happen in 1997. It's a little town of Gerald. That's where my sister lives. And so they've had 2 pretty bad tornadoes here in the past, let me see, 97. So what, 25 years? Okay. Yeah, so the next thing we're going to talk about is on page 117, we're going to talk about what Mr. Graves does with his power inverter, with his UPS universal power supply. And that is, the inverter in order to reconvert that back to AC from DC. The next thing is, having generator backup. Now, let me tell you my stupid mistake with generator backup. So, I've been prepping since 1963, 62, 63. So I figure, I've got this all figured out. And sometimes we get kind of high on our hog and we need to be knocked down a notch or two. So I had a wonderful 5 kW Honda generator. And I had 20 gallons of gas, and I've got, that I rotate. It's good. I've got, stable gas stabilizer in the jars. And we've got oil. We oiled up the generator ahead of time. We check it. We check the plugs. We do the maintenance on it, at least once a year, check and make sure that the filters are clean. We do full maintenance on it. So just to make sure that the darn thing runs. Along comes Snowmageddon. And like I said, 7 days, no power from the solar system, only a 3-day supply of power to our battery backup system. So I say, aha, Lee's got it figured out. I'm going to go get the 5K. Okay. Now, if I run the 5K for 4 hours, that'll fully charge my refrigerator, freezer, put a little bit of heat in the house through a portable heater that we have. We can make a pot of coffee, put that in a thermos. We're good to go. Okay. So I only need to run it for 4 hours out of every 12. And so I get that all ready to go, and I take it out in the backyard. I'm ready to go. By gosh, I got this figured out. And then all of a sudden I realized, how am I going to get the electricity from the backyard inside the house at 5 degrees below zero? I have to leave a window or a door open in order to get that extension cord in. Or I have to close the door or close the window on the extension cord, take a chance at cutting through the rubber and causing a short circuit and a fire. And I did not have this as well figured out as I thought I had. So what I had to do was, I have a very good electrician friend who I go to breakfast with every Tuesday morning, had him come over, and he drilled a hole through my wall. So on the outside, there's basically the male plug. So now I can plug in an extension cord into my 5 kW generator in the backyard, run that. You got the female end of the extension cord where you normally, plug something else into it. So now that male part is in the outside wall of my house. So I just put the female onto the male on the outside. Then I have the regular female plug on the inside, so I can plug anything I want to, another extension cord or anything else into the inside. So now I have that bypass going through the bricks, through the insulation and everything else. And I have a direct connect from the generator out back into the house in case I ever need that again. So sometimes you need to be taken down a humble notch or two when you think you've got things figured out. Yeah, we had 56, 60-mile-hour straight line winds the other night here. Um, and that's very typical in El Paso. I've had really bad straight line winds both when I lived in El Paso and when I lived in San Angelo, and both of those are basically out in the deserts. Um, wow. So Vivian had quite a few. She was surrounded by tornadoes. I just can't imagine that. That would um, you know the, yeah, I don't have an affinity for tornadoes. So let me just be totally honest with you. The first one I had was visiting my grandmother in Missouri, and she lived there was a hill, and she lived down towards the bottom, close to the Indian Creek, and town was up on top of the hill. And I swear that my guardian angel pushed me out of the way of that tornado, because as it came down the main street of this little bitty town, my two cousins and I got pushed into a drainage ditch. And we were saved by being in that drainage ditch because the houses on either side of us were taken away. So I was probably about 12 years old when that happened. So I'm deathly afraid of tornadoes. Now when we lived in Austin, the guy who moved in across the street from us had been the keyboard player for the Playboy Mansion. And so he moved because the Northridge earthquake, a bookshelf fell on the bed, would have killed his daughter when he was on vacation. Here comes the Gerald tornado, broke into three, and one of those three is coming straight at us where we lived in Austin. And he's standing outside in the street, watching this tornado. And he's never seen a tornado before. I told him, get inside, get away from the tornado, get underneath the stairs, do something good. But, he I think I finally convinced him. But, something else. I said, Dorothy's coming. Okay, for a backup generator, you have a manual transfer switch. It changes it over to the generator. Yep, and you have to, so you don't have any feedback. And he says that right there, so you don't get feedback. One of the bad things, if you don't have some sort of a transfer switch, is what can happen is you got your city power coming in here, you've got your generator here, you got your power here. So if you don't have a way of cutting off that city power, and you're running the power off of your generator or off of your universal power supply or anything like that, and the city power comes back on and you haven't blocked it, then it's going to supercharge whatever it is and burn out anything that you were using to generate power before that. So you need to have some sort of a shutoff valve to protect that, so that the city power can't come in and encroach and fry your systems. Well, guess what? We're at an hour and 10 minutes. So the last subject is candles, flashlights, and lanterns. So the UCO is the candle, one of the candles that I prefer. It's available on Amazon. If you'd like, I can put the links. Now, I'll be honest, the UCO candle costs about $15. So if you buy it using my link, I'll make 30 cents, 2%, if you use my link. I like the UCO candles. I have the 3 candle one. It's called the Candelier. And but that produces enough heat to where you can use it to heat up a frying pan or warm water for coffee or anything like that. It's a good candle. If you get the paraffin candles, they have a 9-hour shelf life. If you get the beeswax candles, they have a 12-hour burn time. So, different. I have 2 cases of the paraffin, 2 cases of the beeswax. And so I have 2 candeliers to 3 candle ones, and I have 2 just single candle UCO candles. You can also get the religious candles. I love, getting my Catholic candles at the local dollar store. They're up to $1.50 now. Those are usually 12 or 24-hour candles. If you're offended having something religious on the outside of your candle, soak it in water for about half an hour, and then just scrape it. It comes right off. It's nothing big. Yeah, you do. And also in the ears, just it feels like your eardrums are constantly being sucked in and out. Um, yes, do that quickly. I don't think we have much time left. Hello, Solar Hiker. Welcome. Well, that's okay. You've always got the replay. So, um, Okay, I'll put those links down below for the Uko candelier, Uko candles, the Uko single. Um, Gosh, I don't know if there's anything else I should put down there for you. Um, I'll think of some things to put down there for you. Um, well, here's my thing. Okay, and I think we need to be very, very cautious of this. The reason there are two reasons that the Crisco candle was put out originally. Number one is use your Crisco for cooking. However, if it goes rancid, then it has a use. And the use is put a wick in it, you can use it as a candle. So to buy Crisco for the sole purpose of using it as a candle, is more expensive than just buying some good candles. And you're also wasting something that's a good food commodity uh, for it to be an alternative to something you have available to you now. Of course, the other one is if you go run out of candles and you have a big pile of Crisco, then you can use your Crisco as an alternative candle. I'm kind of against, we did this real good job starting about 20 years ago of saying these are alternatives if something is not available. And somehow it has gotten to the point now to where people think that those alternatives are now mainstream, and that's what you should plan on doing. It works. It's a very good thing to do, but I would not make it my primary. I would use commercially made candles. You can get tea candles. You can get 50 tea candles, little bitty tea candles that have about a 3-hour burn time at Walmart for $1. I mean, you can't beat that price, and they're easy to store. And you put 5 of those on a tray, and put some bricks and a grid up above, and you've got a cook stove. So I mean, there are other things better than the Crisco candle. But yes, I have tried it. Yes, it does work. And I never did use it up. This was on a camping trip. Never did use up all that Crisco because just we didn't use it that much. I guess we only used it a couple hours a night. Yes, it is hard to find right now. You can also do the same thing with lard. So if you don't have Crisco, you can also use lard as a replacement, because what you want to do is you just want to melt that fat so that it's going up into that wick, and what you're actually doing is burning it through the wick rather than burning the actual Crisco. So you're turning it from a solid to a liquid, and then from a liquid into a gas, which burns. Yes, I prefer beeswax as well. As a matter of fact, we believe that when the trials and tribulations begin, there are going to be 3 days of darkness, and the only thing that's going to be able to be used for light during the 3 days of darkness are going to be beeswax candles. So, that's just one of those unique things to us. Absolutely fantastic suggestion. That remember, your candles are mostly paraffin, so you can melt down. If you have a little stub, melt it down, turn it into a bigger candle. Just make sure you have plenty of wicking material available so you can put that in there. Another thing is paraffin. I like Boy Scout stoves. So a Boy Scout stove is a tuna can that you've cleaned out. You've got corrugated cardboard that you put down there just almost up to the lip of the tuna can. All the corrugation is running up and down. You're going to fill that with melted paraffin, and then the cardboard becomes your wick. The paraffin becomes your fuel, and that's hot enough to where you can cook on it. If you use a side cutting opener, then that lid will fit on top of it, and you can put a rubber band around it or something and keep it sealed. And that's what we carried with us in Boy Scouts to cook with, or as a evening lantern or something like that. The one tuna can would usually last us through an entire week of camping, and that's using it both for a stove and for a candle. And the good thing here is they're safe for indoor use too. So, okay, so we're at the end, and I'm overtime. We're now 15 minutes overtime. Gosh, thank you all so much for putting up with me for this long. So next week, we're going to talk about chapters 7 and 8, and that's gardening, livestock, medical supplies, and where to get good first aid training. So let me check the comments again and see if there's anything we have to respond to. Yeah, they're fantastic. Those tuna can candles are just outstanding. So let me look for numbers here. And where is numbers? There's numbers. Come on, where are you? There you are. So remember, we don't have the book club. We're going to meet the 1st of December. Yeah, next week is election night. So yeah, let's go ahead and postpone next week. Let's postpone that 1 week. And so I'll change the dates on the announcements on the live StreamYard. And we're also going to postpone the fiction book club by 1 week because the last Thursday of this month is Thanksgiving. And I'm sure nobody wants to spend their evening of Thanksgiving talking about a fiction book club instead of being with their families. So I will work on getting next week changed so we do not have one next week, and we'll postpone that to the following week. And then we're postponing our fiction book club until the 1st of December. It's going to be the first Thursday in December. Okay, so fantastic. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for the fantastic comments that you had in chat. I really appreciate them. I know the other people who are reading your chat appreciate those additions and recommendations and fantastic things you put in there. So, please continue to do that because we really, really do appreciate that. Let me see. Oh, good. So he does the same thing. Next week is election night. We got that taken care of. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you being here and participating. And so we'll close it out with Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, and 26. And that is, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other because togetherness is the key. Take care. Bye-bye.